The second Ochako Uraraka from My Hero Academia developed a crush on the series' protagonist, Izuku Midoriya. All hell broke loose in terms of discourse surrounding her character. Why is this something that got people so up in arms? Well, it's probably because of the history of shonen at large, but I don't think a lot of this analysis is particularly fair to Ochako. Let's discuss her character, the reception to some of her developments, and the history of shonen and why we got here. To begin, let's lay some groundwork so we can understand why people came to view Ochako's character arc in such a negative light. Shonen, but also anime at large, is not known for its splendid treatment of female characters. There have been years and years of discourse about anime's issues with its female cast, namely the rampant sexualization or objectification of them as opposed to the male cast, and their lack of interesting characters beyond obsession with a male lead. A lot of people would say that female anime characters exist solely to propagate old cultural ideas about women. Japan is not known for its very progressive views on women. I mean, most of the world isn't, but this isn't a video about most of the world. Nearly a third of Japan's women have been sexually harassed at work, gender segregation in the workforce, the third highest wage gap in the OECD, 2 Japanese medical schools literally admitting that they raise the bar for exams if women take them, and with the archaic family values ideals that put women in situations to be beholden to men in relationships, it's no wonder that anime and manga became so riddled with women that men could gawk at, and that only exist to be subservient to male characters. My Hero Academia came out literally immediately after Naruto ended, so it had some big shoes to fill, being known as sort of its successor in the magazine known as Weekly Shonen Jump. Ochako Uraraka also immediately came off the heels of Sakura Haruno, one of the most memed characters in anime manga, accused of doing nothing besides cutting her hair in her fight against Ino and being a tool that exists to love Sasuke. There are probably many more complaints about Sakura that you can find online, but this is the most basic summary I can give. Due to the massive outrage and backlash about Sakura as a character, Ochako being what some people perceived as the immediate follow-up to her, was immediately placed under a very scrutinous eye. She would sort of undeliver at first with her, "Oh, oops, my costume is skin-tight, haha, that's not right," which was extraordinarily cringe, but people's perceptions would immediately turn around during the Sports Festival arc of Season 2. In this arc, she gets the chance to tell the audience what she is really about. Money. Her parents have a construction company, and she's tired of watching them be overworked and tired, so she wants to win the sports festival to get contacted by hero agencies to make enough money to save her parents. She would be put up against seemingly a hopeless opponent, Bakugo Katsuki, whose battle experience and power far surpasses her own, yet she would never give up over the course of the fight. And before the fight, she also rejected the help of our protagonist so that she could win on her own, not having to be reliant on his advice. Immediately, this set the bar very high for Ochako as a character. Not only did she circumvent the rampant sexualization of or objectification of female characters in anime by, well, not being sexualized here and just fighting, she also rejected the help of the protagonist to forge her own path in the fight, making the battle completely about her own motivations. Unfortunately, however, after this, the world would come to an end, as Ochako Uraraka would admit the unthinkable, the most dastardly thing that has ever occurred in shonen history. A 16-year-old girl would develop a crush. Ochako in the next arc would encounter what essentially amounts to her antagonist, Himiko Toga, and alongside, the two clash and Toga points out that she likes someone, and how Toga herself wants to become the person she loves. Afterwards, Ochako decides to suppress her feelings for Midoriya, choosing to prioritize her education and career over a relationship, and throughout much of the story we see hints and glimpses of Ochako's crush on Deku, and how she wants to emulate the kind of person he is. Cue the onslaught of videos saying Ochako is ruined. The primary criticisms of her are that she has become yet another female character that exists only to orbit the protagonist and bend to his whims, losing any and all substance the second the crush plotline was introduced. First things first, Ochako is indeed centered around Midoriya. Where my disagreement lies, though, is that the majority of the cast of My Hero Academia is centered around Midoriya. Ochako is not special in this, and while with the context I provided prior about the state of shonen, I understand why some people came to this conclusion. It is a double standard that permeates discussion of the series. Every time Ochako gets criticized for being too centered around Midoriya, I can't help but think about Bakugo, the character whose literal existence is contingent on Midoriya as a character, or Shoto, the character who literally had a life-altering epiphany because of his fight with Midoriya, going forward to permanently change the way he approaches his family dynamic. Or All Might, the top hero of an entire nation whose idea of what a hero was changed by a quirkless nobody. Or Ida, who had Midoriya's words of a hero being someone who intervenes even if it doesn't concern them, changed his outlook on things and allowed him to push forward. Or Kirishima, who heard of a quirkless nobody going to save somebody even though he himself couldn't move when it mattered most. Because Midoriya is the protagonist. That is just something that happens sometimes in a story. The protagonist is the most important character, so he is involved in a lot of things, yet for some reason, Ochako is the only one who gets specifically criticized for her supposed reliance on Midoriya's character. Most of the criticisms laid out about her character only being about her crush are also severely misguided. To summarize why, we have to look at Himiko Toga, a character that Ochako is actually arguably more connected to than Midoriya. In the My Villain Academia arc, we learn about Toga's struggles with the perception of her quirk. Born with a unique way of expressing love, and due to that love being expressed in what most would consider a creepy or strange way, she was verbally attacked by her parents and told to suppress herself. After years of living as something she is not and half-assed quirk counseling telling her to just get better forehead, it all boiled over until she harmed the boy she had a crush on in school. The way Toga was living, and the way Ochako lives now, are almost one-to-one, in that they suppress themselves for the sake of everyone but themselves. Toga suppressed her feelings on the recommendation of her parents to make them happy, and after the hand of the ineffective social systems at large came into play. Ochako suppressed her feelings due to wanting to make her parents happy. In the fight during the war arc between Ochako and Toga that people still say is only about their crushes, Toga even brings up explicitly that this is what their conflict is about, telling Ochako that she has held in her feelings and that shutting them away doesn't work, because Ochako from the beginning has been putting others before herself, even as early as the sports festival, where everyone claimed that she peaked, and that Horikoshi had forgotten about the poverty aspect of her character, despite it being integral to her future characterization. Their conversations are about Midoriya, sure, but it's better if you see him as merely a catalyst for the point at large. The point that Toga being forced to suppress herself isn't right, the point that Ochako choosing others before herself isn't always the correct option, or I guess we can keep intentionally missing the point to keep complaining about shonen female characters. Not to say that Ochako is perfect, because she definitely is not. She basically did next to nothing for a majority of Act 2, being relegated to having her entire role off-screened in the story's first huge arc, the Overhaul arc, and being more or less inactive until the Paranormal Liberation War, and her relationship with Midoriya itself being largely undercooked. Despite her lack of use throughout the story, it is still very reductive to say that she has just been made a character that fawns over the protagonist. She has her own arc about wanting to save heroes when they need saving, and harming herself along the way, and ironically, as a response to anime having some problematic or even misogynistic portrayals of female characters, the knee-jerk reactions from some fans have been to attack Ochako for showing off what people would consider feminine traits, like being emotionally open or talking about feelings during a fight. Midway through Ochako and Toga's fight, I couldn't help but think that this encounter would have had think pieces written about it should the genders be swapped. Ochako even goes on to be even more thematically relevant by being one of the earliest recognitions in the story that heroes are just people. Back during the Overhaul arc, where she was hopelessly underused, she still had this moment where she held a dying Night Eye in her arms, and had to grapple with the survivor's guilt that the entire operation led her to feeling. Just like how she wanted to protect and save the people she looks up to, her parents, she now wanted to protect and save heroes, a status in hero society that is often touted as the peak of superhuman culture. Her most recent moment in the anime, her grand speech, about Deku, unfortunately for some, is the natural conclusion of this ideology of hers. Midoriya is just a 16-year-old boy who had the weight of the world on his shoulders, feeling forced to go out and fight and maybe even die to stop All for One and Shigaraki. Ochako, however, spearheads the search to find Deku and bring him home, because she wants to be someone who helps heroes who suffer with a smile on their face. She wants to be someone who recognizes the pain heroes are in, not just because they are heroes, but because they are people. As she gives her speech upon the rainy rooftop, the image of a crying Toga flashes through her mind. While she rightfully fights for the recognition of the feelings heroes and other people feel, what about the villains? It left Ochako to wonder, what series of circumstances brought her to tears that day, or what circumstances brought her to this fight, or to this villain group? Where did it all go wrong for Himiko Toga, a villain, no, a human being? And as we established earlier, the root of that was suppression. While there are fair criticisms to make of Ochako's character, I hope I was able to help put her in a better light for those watching, and that her being tied so closely to the protagonist's existence isn't an intrinsically bad thing. She's a really cool character to dive into the motions of being a hero, a foil to how someone's circumstances can change so much for them, and I think our criticisms should be grounded a little bit more in the actual text, and how Horikoshi has utilized, or rather, not really utilized her, where she could have been, and not end up making criticisms about her just because she is a woman, ironically enough. But yeah, she did deserve a raw-ass fight at least. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe for the funny YouTube algorithm. You can also become a YouTube member, which gives you access to behind-the-scenes content, a badge on comments and livestream chats, as well as the use of emotes and videos before their actual release. You can also check the description for socials like Twitter, where I'm objectively correct all the time, and Discord, where we talk about ReZero, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, and stuff like that. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.